Before we begin today's story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy emotionally driven stories that stay with you long after the video ends. These stories aren't loud or rushed. They quietly settle into your heart. The rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle, tapping softly against the windows of the Parker home. Inside, the living room felt warm and calm, not because of the heater, but because three people were sitting together, trying to understand each other again. Ethan sat in his favorite chair, his hands clasped together as he stared at the soft glow of the lamp beside him. Laura sat on the couch nearby, her coat resting on the floor, her hair still slightly damp from the rain outside. Maya sat quietly at the other end of the couch, her hands folded in her lap. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was thoughtful, the kind of silence that comes when people are trying to be honest after a long time of avoiding difficult conversations. For the first time in months, none of them were pretending. Ethan felt the tightness in his chest slowly ease. The feeling hadn't disappeared completely, but it had changed. What he felt now was a mixture of guilt, relief, and something he hadn't felt in a while: hope. Laura finally broke the silence. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "When did we stop being close?" The question hung in the air. Ethan swallowed. It wasn't a new question. He had asked himself the same thing many times over the past year, but hearing Laura say it out loud made it impossible to ignore. "I don't know," he admitted quietly. "Maybe we just got busy with everything. Work, responsibilities, life. I guess we stopped noticing each other." Laura nodded slowly, her eyes lowering toward the floor. "I did the same," she said gently. "I thought I was showing love the way I always had, but maybe I stopped paying attention to what you needed." Maya listened quietly. She felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Relief because the truth was finally being spoken. Sadness because she could see how the distance between Ethan and Laura had grown without either of them realizing it. She shifted slightly, wondering if she should excuse herself and leave them alone. But before she could say anything, Laura turned toward her. "Maya," Laura said softly, "do you know why I'm not angry?" Maya looked surprised. Her lips trembled slightly. "No," she said honestly. "I thought you would be." Laura gave a faint smile. "Because when I walked in tonight, I saw something I haven't seen in a long time," she said. "What was that?" Maya asked quietly. "Warmth," Laura replied. "Honesty. The kind of comfort people have when they feel safe around each other." Ethan lowered his gaze, feeling a quiet wave of guilt. Laura continued gently. "For months, Ethan and I have been living in the same house, but somehow we stopped truly connecting. Tonight reminded me of what that connection feels like." Mia's heart tightened. She had never intended to step into the middle of someone else's marriage. "I never wanted to take your place," Maya whispered. Laura shook her head immediately. "You didn't," she said calmly. "You reminded me of something important." "What's that?" Maya asked. "That connection doesn't disappear forever," Laura said. "Sometimes it just needs honesty to come back." Ethan looked at Laura, surprised by the calmness in her voice. "Laura," he began, but she gently raised her hand. "I know," she said softly. She turned her attention back to Maya. "You've been part of our lives for a long time. Tonight you didn't break anything. If anything, you helped us see what we were missing." The room grew quiet again, but this time the silence felt lighter. Outside, the rain continued to fall gently against the windows, and inside the small living room, three people sat together, no longer hiding their thoughts, no longer pretending everything was fine. For the first time in a long while, they were simply being honest, and sometimes honesty is where healing begins. The rain outside continued its quiet rhythm, filling the pauses between their words. The room felt different now. The tension that once sat heavily in the air had softened, replaced by something calmer, something closer to understanding. Ethan leaned forward slightly in his chair, resting his elbows on his knees. For a long moment, he simply looked at Laura. It felt strange and familiar at the same time, like rediscovering something he had once taken for granted. "I never realized how far apart we had drifted," he said quietly. Laura looked at him, her expression thoughtful rather than hurt. "Neither did I," she admitted. "Sometimes distance doesn't happen all at once. It happens little by little, until one day you notice the silence." Maya listened carefully. She could see both of them trying not to argue, not to blame, but to understand. Ethan sighed softly. "I kept telling myself everything was fine," he said. "Work was busy, life was busy. I thought that was normal." Laura nodded slowly. "I did the same," she replied. "I focused on responsibilities, schedules, all the small things that fill a day. Somewhere along the way, I stopped asking how you really felt." The honesty between them was fragile, but it was real. Maya spoke carefully, choosing her words with respect. "Sometimes people don't notice the distance because they still care," she said gently. "They just forget to say it out loud." Ethan looked at her and gave a small, grateful smile. That's probably true, he said. Laura leaned back slightly against the couch, letting out a slow breath. You know what I miss the most? She asked. What? Ethan replied. Our trips to the lake, Laura said with a faint smile. Remember how we would leave the city behind for a weekend? No schedules, no phones, just time to talk. Ethan's face softened with the memory. Of course I remember, he said. We would sit by the water for hours, talking about everything and nothing. For some reason, Laura continued quietly, those were the moments when I felt closest to you. Maya watched the two of them, seeing how those memories brought a quiet warmth back into the room. Maybe those moments are still possible, Maya said gently. Ethan looked at her curiously. What do you mean? I mean, Maya explained, sometimes people think something is gone forever, but really they just stopped making space for it. Laura considered this for a moment. That might be true, she said slowly. For the first time that evening, a small smile appeared on Ethan's face. Maybe we should go back someday, he suggested. To the lake? Laura's eyes brightened slightly. Maybe we should, she replied. The three of them shared a quiet moment, the idea lingering in the air, like a small promise. Maya looked down at her hands for a second before speaking again. I hope you both know something, she said. Ethan and Laura turned toward her. What's that? Ethan asked. I didn't come here to change anything between you two, Maya said honestly. If anything, I just hope to remind you both of what you already had. Laura's expression softened. You did more than that tonight, she said warmly. Sometimes it takes an outside perspective to see what we've been missing. Ethan nodded in agreement. For a long time, he admitted, I tried to fix things quietly by myself. I thought if I worked harder or stayed busy, everything would somehow fall back into place. And did it? Laura asked gently. Ethan shook his head. No, he said, because relationships don't fix themselves in silence. Laura reached out slowly, placing her hand over Ethan's. The simple gesture felt natural, almost comforting. I think we both forgot something important, she said softly. What's that? Ethan asked. That connection needs attention, she replied, just like anything else in life. Maya smiled quietly, seeing the change in both of them. Outside, the rain was beginning to slow again, the soft tapping against the windows growing lighter. Inside the living room, the conversation continued. More open now, more relaxed. They talked about old memories, small misunderstandings, and moments they had never taken the time to explain before. The past wasn't perfect, but for the first time in a long while, they were facing it together. And sometimes that is the first real step toward rebuilding something that once meant everything. That be why by the time the rain outside had softened into a quiet mist, the atmosphere in the room had changed even more. The heaviness that once filled the space had slowly faded, replaced by a quiet sense of understanding. The three of them were still sitting in the living room, but the distance between them no longer felt awkward. It felt thoughtful, respectful, like everyone finally understood where they stood. Ethan leaned back in his chair, letting out a slow path. I didn't realize how much I needed a conversation like this, he admitted. Laura looked at him with a gentle smile. Neither did I, she said. Sometimes we carry things for so long that we forget we can simply talk about them. Maya listened quietly, feeling a sense of relief she hadn't expected. Earlier that evening, she had worried that her presence might create more problems than solutions, but now it felt like something different. Not conflict, understanding. You know, Maya said softly, when I came back to the city, I felt like I didn't really belong anymore. Ethan and Laura both turned their attention toward her. What do you mean? Laura asked. Maya shrugged slightly. This place holds so many memories for me, she explained. Some good, some difficult. Coming back made me feel like I was standing between the past and the present. Not quite part of either. Laura nodded thoughtfully. I understand that feeling, she said. Life changes faster than we expect sometimes. For a moment, the three of them simply sat in silence again, but this time the quiet felt peaceful. Ethan looked at both women and spoke carefully. I think tonight reminded me of something important, he said. What's that? Laura asked. That relationships aren't just about routines, he replied. They're about attention, about really seeing the people in your life. Laura's expression softened. I think we stopped seeing each other for a while, she admitted. Ethan nodded slowly. But tonight changed that, he said. Maya smiled faintly, though her voice remained calm. You both already had something strong, she said. Sometimes people just need a moment to remember it. Laura leaned back on the couch, looking thoughtful. I spent so much time trying to keep everything organized. Work, home responsibilities, she said. I thought if everything stayed in order, our lives would stay stable too. And instead, Ethan asked gently. And instead, Laura continued, I forgot to slow down and actually enjoy the life we were building. Ethan looked down for a moment before speaking again. I think I did the opposite, he said. When things started feeling distant, I avoided talking about it. I thought silence would make the tension disappear. Maya shook her head slightly. Silence usually does the opposite, she said. It gives misunderstandings room to grow. Laura gave a small understanding laugh. That sounds about right. The mood in the room had become lighter now, not because everything was suddenly perfect, but because honesty had replaced confusion. Ethan glanced toward the window again. The rain had nearly stopped. Funny how tonight started, he said. Laura raised an eyebrow. With a storm outside, he continued, and a lot of unspoken feelings inside. And now? Maya asked. Ethan smiled slightly. Now it feels like the storm passed. Laura looked at both of them for a moment before speaking again. I don't want tonight to just be a one-time conversation, she said. What do you mean? Ethan asked. I mean, I want us to keep being this honest, she replied. No pretending, no avoiding difficult feelings. Ethan nodded immediately. I want that too. Maya looked at them both, her expression warm but thoughtful. I'm glad I was here tonight, she said quietly. Not because I fixed anything, but because I got to see two people remember why they care about each other. Laura reached over and gently squeezed Maya's hand. You were part of that tonight, she said sincerely. Maya smiled, a little surprised by the gesture. Outside, the final drops of rain slid down the windows. Inside the small living room, something had shifted. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but slowly, honestly, and in a way that felt real. And sometimes real change begins with nothing more than a conversation.